Good evening. Welcome to Embrace Zindegi. And I'm Shushmita Roy. With me, Dr. Partha Pratim Bose.
Hello, everybody.
Today we are here with the 14th episode on Shruti, the art of listening. Imagine how important it is. It goes back to our Bhagavad Gita, I guess, where on the field of Kurukshetra, the battlefield, Arjuna seated with Krishna, the charioteer, and he is in dilemma. What did Krishna do? He recited the Bhagavad Gita. And who listened to him? Other than Arjuna, it was Sanjaya. And then he goes and he narrates the same to the blind king, Dhritarashtra. So therefore, it began all there, isn't it? Isn't it important?
Absolutely. Shumi, listening is not that it's a passive phenomenon, it's a very active listening. It's a high level of consciousness where you have to be very alert and attentive. And a person who has been very actively listening to another person's dialogue, he should be respected with a high esteem because he is going to go through the process which the person is going to explain it. And it is what is said that active listening is an art where you have to be more attentive.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
an attention over talent,
Absolutely.
spirits over egos, and others over self.
How beautifully you said that. So, listening is the fundamental requisite to begin a conversation, isn't it?
Absolutely. Without active listening, you cannot. It's like an alap. It's something like a catharsis.
Yeah, yeah.
If you are attentive, if you are playing a active role in that dialogue, then only you can develop a conversation. So active listening is a way to a good conversation.
So it is not only the speaking, the speaker. You got to pay respect to the person, the other person you are in conversation with. So it is absolutely imperative to listen carefully, to create the environment to listen. That means being mindful, isn't it?
Absolutely. When we talk of active listening, so you see all the important functions are connected. That means first of all you should have a very good hearing response because
Yeah.
the physical conduit has to be very good.
Right.
Then it has to be processed to the brain where you're probably listening
Okay.
in detail
Yeah.
the ideas which has been communicated to you so that
Yeah.
you are thinking about it. That means that talks about a very mindfulness because there you have to come out of the distractions.
Yes.
Because you are participating in their process, it's a processing unit. Then of course you also have to appreciate the emotion of the person. That means his non-verbal communications.
Right.
Which how the person is communicating his emotional, his
Yeah.
anxiety and everything. At the same time,
Yeah.
also you are continuously thinking of how best you can help him. That means you have to empathize. It's a two-way dialogue.
And that means your mind is active.
So mind is active, not only active, it is like an active brain processing. It's you're
Right.
continuously
Right.
activating your mind and rejuvenating yourself. That means the information which is coming through your neural wires, you're processing in your higher level with the right kind of conduit. At the same time, you're with your mindfulness, you are processing those information so effectively so that you're totally distracted, and at the same time going beyond. That means you're not putting your perspectives, you're seeing his perspective, and in other words, you're putting, you're thinking about his shoes, you're going into his shoes, you're empathizing with the whole
Absolutely.
process.
So many times, Partha, we hear people say that, I wish he had listened to me. I wish. And there are those times when he said, he just wouldn't listen. And this is the key problem. I guess this is the root cause of so many arguments and so many problems at home. So how do we tackle this?
Before we got about the solutions and all, but let me tell you is that the biggest problem in the whole world is that even in the relationships, smaller
Yes.
or professional, personal level, that means
Exactly.
we presume that we are listening, but actually we are not listening.
We
It's
are
not
not.
that you cannot listen it. Probably you don't want to listen it. Listening is not that how you respond to the communication being sent to you. Listening is that how you process those communications, effectively think, empathizing, and so that you give a solution. So it is not immediately responding to it. You have to, it's like a storytelling.
Right.
You have to get into the mood and the story of the persons. You have to get into the story and you have to enjoy the story so that it becomes a two-way connect. So whenever you talk of solutions, let me tell you, in the study says that throughout the day, 70% of our hearing is the communication, what you call.
Yeah.
But out of that, it has been found that only 45% is active listening happens.
Absolutely.
And that too, they say the 50%, if you say that listening which you are, that you don't recall it. But the criteria of good listening is that you have to acknowledging,
Yes.
empathizing, sympathizing, and paraphrasing. Now, what is paraphrasing? Like, if you are acknowledging somebody's ideas which has been communicated,
Right. Right.
you can only acknowledge when you sympathize and empathize, and at the same time your brain should create a paraphrase of what is the interpretation you're going to create, so that you can help him, so that if he feels, he develops a trust, a bonding with you.
Right.
So these four things are very important: acknowledging, sympathizing, empathizing, and paraphrasing.
And also on the physical level, I guess, you got to make eye contact. That is very important because the other person feels important, isn't it?
Absolutely. I tell you, whenever you talk of active listening, people say that you should be absolutely mum. No, it's not. You are not like an absorbent sponge.
Yeah.
It should be like a trampoline effect. That means you should be, that listening
attentive.
no, you should be so attentive. You should be so graceful. You should have such a good eye contact. You give importance to non-verbal clues, so that you're part of the process, so that once the discussion is over, you bounce back with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, so that he feels good.
And another very important aspect, Partho, is do not interrupt.
Absolutely. Listening is, that's what I'm saying. Listening
Yeah.
is not that you're not having an eye contact, you're simply ignoring and absolutely a pin drop you're listening. That is not. You have to get involved at the same time.
Responding. Yeah.
You have to respond.
Yes,
It's
right.
not that you have to go for long hours of silence. Yes,
Yeah.
patience is very important. Patient hearing is very important. But at the same time, you have to be participatory. You have to give certain inputs also. It's not that you are just ignoring him and telling, yes, it happens. No, you should be equally attentive. So
Yeah.
the person who is participating in a discussion, he should, that the person is taking an interest, and that's being said, it's an active listening.
Sometimes I have to talk about my personal experience. My husband speaks quite slowly and steadily, and I'm restless. So therefore, I break him in between, and we end up in arguments. So tell me the process of listening where it can bring happiness to me as well.
There are a few golden rules. First of all, you have to understand that. First of all, you have to understand, when active listening you do it, there are so many advantages. You enhance your skill set.
Yes,
You
I
develop
guess.
more patience.
Yeah. Right.
People love you. You
Right.
develop a trust in people.
Right.
You save time and money, because active
Absolutely.
listening gives you a good conclusion.
Yeah.
And the best part of it, when you are an active listener, you also think beyond yourself. You get
Yes.
somebody else's perspective.
Right.
So I think, as you said, the situation that you see, that probably you are talking or you expect some kind of communication. If somebody is a slow processor, you are the fast processor. The most important thing is that, which I discussed in my previous podcast also, broad and build theory. So whenever
Yeah.
you have to develop and that communication, first of all you have to empathize. Even if he is a slow person, you should give in priority to his understanding. Try to understand, play active role, and empathizing and understanding the process and giving certain clues, so that it has to be interesting. It's not that it's a skill. You have to get into the processing unit of the person who is communicating.
Right.
Even if it is a slow
Right.
person's, you have to understand what he wants to communicate. Maybe reason being, this what I call the barriers of communication, because you're
Yeah.
thinking his own perspective, because
Yeah.
you have his own logistic unit,
And we
own rational unit.
build a shield.
You build a
That-
shield. You think
yeah.
that I have been brought
I'm
up like this. I
right.
think like, no. The first thing is that you have to empathize. You have to have an eye contact. You have to understand what he wants to tell, because maybe he is not able to communicate the way you expect,
Right.
but you have to help
Right.
him out to communicate
Right.
better.
Right.
And that is an art, and that is only possible when you understand what he wants to say,
Right.
and help him to take it further. It is something like for example, if some discussion is happening, so you also contribute. It's not that you become absolutely mum in the process.
Right.
You also give little,
Little inputs.
inputs from his life, his keeping in his mind his achievements, and also that he feels excited, he feels stimulated, so that you develop a kind of a synergy. The synergy is
Right,
very important,
right.
because you have to go into the same neural wire, the same processing unit.
And absolutely what you said, it actually builds a relationship when you are listening to someone and you're giving a patient hearing. So, it is what usually we do. We only talk. We want to hear ourselves as well. And you'll find a lot of the speakers on stage, they're constantly speaking. So I think they need this skill of listening the most, isn't it?
Absolutely. Even if what you said, that why it doesn't happen in most of the time, it turns out to be a catastrophe. The reason being, you have to understand the difference between hearing and listening.
Yes,
Listening is what we
absolutely.
call, it needs a critical level thinking. Now,
Yeah.
what is critical level thinking? That means if somebody is communicating something to you, first of all, you have to be very attentive. You have to be so passionate about this listening, so that he feels that he is for me, that art. For that, you have to develop a rational thinking process, and this is what is called critical level thinking. I'll give you what is critical level thinking in listening. Take the example of Bhagavad Gita. I tell
Yeah.
you, if you
Yeah.
see this story, you will come to know the most of the relationship will be solved. Now, what happens? When Arjuna was in a denial mode,
Right.
where was the situation?
Right.
It was a ground.
It was a battlefield.
It is a battlefield. There
Yeah.
was a lot of distractions.
Right, absolutely.
And already, the war was about to start.
Yeah.
Now, what happened? The first thing what he did, the Krishna said that the war will start immediately. So let me do, first of all, what he tried to do, he heard him very patiently.
Yeah.
He was not carried away by the distractions of the war fields.
Right.
Because the person who is listening, he should have a very stable mind. He should
Right.
not be action oriented.
Right.
What Krishna did, he didn't think about the war.
Yeah.
He forgot about the word, and he started listening to Krishna very patiently.
Yeah.
The first thing is that here you
So
find,
that means Arjuna sort of came to a very steady,
and
stable
if you see the situation,
self.
he was anxious.
Yeah.
He was in
Yes.
dilemma.
Yeah.
The racing thoughts was in mind. Situation was very difficult. Arjun wanted to convey something, and always he took a decision. Krishna didn't lose his cool.
Right. Right.
He was a patient listener, and he kept on listening to him. Then he came. And what are the things which he did with the Krishna? First of all, he empathized with with Arjuna.
Arjuna.
First step is what he developed empathy. He said, "Yeah, I understand."
I
And what
understand
kind
your
of-
dilemma.
I understand. First of all, he appreciated his dilemma.
Yeah.
Then he said
Yeah.
that. Then he appreciated his talent. He said, "Look,
Yes.
try to understand. You have come for a
war.
war,
Yeah.
and you are one of the greatest experts of the world.
Absolutely.
So believe in your core." So that means
Yeah.
at the same time he was stimulating him. He was giving a little pep talk to him that you are a great warrior also.
So you are saying the speaker also need to stimulate the
Stimulate. So
listener.
here he
Yeah.
is involving in a kind of stimulating discussion.
Right.
He is also stimulating and doing a little mentorship for Arjuna.
Right. Right.
He's empathizing with Arjuna.
Right.
At the same time, what he's doing, he never commented anything about it. He said,
Yeah.
"Look, you don't have to look around.
Yeah.
If you look up, there's nothing. Look within." So
Right.
that's why what he did,
Right.
he
Right.
said, when you look within, your anxiety will come down, your
Yeah.
mind will settle down,
Yeah.
there will be no racing on thoughts. A
Yeah.
stable mind will be a rational. So once your mind, that's why I said, when your mind is racing of thoughts, your actions become poor. When the mind becomes mindfulness, your actions becomes very energetic and purposeful. So what he did, he mellowed Arjun down. He said,
Yeah.
you don't have to look up. Look within.
Look within.
Look within.
So, Parthu, give me a little bit of the medical reasoning behind it. What happens in the brain when you are looking within? What kind of hormone? What kind of what happens in within
Look
us?
what happens. I tell you one thing. Like I'll give you a little story of look within. Like for example, forget about Arjuna and all those things. I
Yes.
know Bhagavad Gita is very inspirational. I give you a simple solution. Suppose you go somewhere, you appreciate a dialogue or maybe a talk shows or a
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
What happens to you?
You feel good.
You feel good.
Yes.
So you feel good.
Yes.
When you feel good, what happens?
You feel happy, you feel joyous.
You feel joyous, you feel happy. And the first thing is, you don't feel the time.
You don't know the time. Yes,
So
absolutely.
you go into a kind of timeless motion.
Right, right.
So you are enjoying so much that how
Yeah.
the time has flown.
Right.
The same thing happened when
Yeah.
Arjuna was in conversation with Krishna.
Yes.
He went into a joyful feeling
State.
and state. When you are joyful, when you see the person whom I'm interacting, he's not only my mentor, he's something like a friend.
Yes.
And he has developed a trust. So once you develop a trust, you feel happy. When you feel happy, you feel joyful, you don't feel the time.
Right.
Once you are timeless, now what happens? So then your
The time stands still there.
so that means what happens?
And moment of ecstasy.
Ecstasy comes because it's something like you're not seeing
Yeah,
what is happening.
you don't see,
You don't
yes.
know whether it's a war going on or there is some
Yeah.
process going on or somebody expecting something. You're so much involved
You
in the
are-
process
Yes.
that you become mindful. So that means you become from mindfulness, you become mindful. That means
Mindful.
from FULL, you become mindful, you become so relaxed, so chilled out. And suddenly what happens? This is called law of conservation of energy.
Yeah.
Once your mind gets chilled out, so what happens? You start conserving energy.
Okay.
This is called law of conservation.
Okay.
Everything in the world it can be explained by the law of conservation of energy. Like for example, I tell you, you see a mountain.
Yeah.
When the mountain is over the years, what happens? If the mountain is not going into a catharsis, what you call when there is no breaking of the mountain, when no pebbles are coming out, what happens? You see the volcanoes happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happens? When you are kinetizing yourself with the right kind of communication,
Yeah.
a process of listening, what you call the other person is using his critical level to understand you. So what happened? You're kinetizing your mind. It is something, our human mind is something like a microcosmos, like a mountain.
Right.
So you kinetize your process so that you become timeless. Your juices, there are two juices with the body. One is called the sympathetic and it's called parasympathetic. Sympathetic is adrenaline rush.
Okay.
Your excitement, your performance anxiety,
Right.
your flight and flight personality, your
Right.
goosebumps,
Right.
they settle down. You
Okay.
feel chilled out
Okay.
because you're already kinetized. It is something like
Right.
hitting a ball. When you hit the ball, all the energy get kinetized in the ball.
Right.
So it is a kinetizing effect. So what happens when you are in active listening? You are kinetizing your potential energy, which is in your brain, into a kinetic form. So what is the kinetization? You kinetize those good feelings so that you can become peaceful, you become chilled, you become blissful, and you start enjoying this blissfulness. Then what happens? Once you enjoy a state of blissfulness, then you start appreciating yourself. So instead of looking up and taking the help of a God, you look within and you see there is a God within which is guiding you to chilled out and just do the right.
So you're saying that in this state of bliss, we are happy, and not only happy, we are joyous. So that joy we obviously spread to the other person, and you get connected. And this is the core of every relationship.
So, whenever there is a communication happens between two joyful communication, this is
Right.
what I call it.
Right.
When you enjoy a purposeful conversation, and that is an active listening, you develop those critical level skills. And those critical level skills are the release of certain good hormones.
Yeah.
You feel good. And as I always say,
Yeah.
that good hormones are
Yeah.
released, the dopamine is released, the endorphin
Yeah.
is released. So serotonin is released and oxytocin. Once the oxytocin, you feel loved, you feel that I'm blessed, I feel happy. Once you feel happy, your actions will be right and you will appreciate others.
So wonderful. I think the skill of listening, there are 5 tips that if you can give.
The one most important thing of skill of listening is that you should have a patience.
You should have the patience.
Patience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 2,
Yeah.
your non-verbal clues should be very good. You should
Right.
use your mannerism and gestures to appreciate the what you call the eye
And let
contact.
your eyes speak.
Speaks. Number 3, you should empathize
Empathize.
with the
empathy.
person, whatever he
Yes.
is trying to explain.
Right.
Try to
right.
empathize and you feel as if in his or her shoes. Empathy is
Yeah.
more.
and that definitely calms your mind, right?
Absolutely. Number 4, at the same time, whenever you're listening to the person, it's something like, it's not that you should keep mum.
You should be active.
You should be active. It is
Active
something
listener.
like a sleep, active state of mind.
Yeah.
Though you're sleeping, but actually
Right.
you're releasing good hormones in the sleep. So you should be giving certain inputs based on the conversation which he has given, so that he understands. This is what you call paraphrasing.
And the fifth point, most important point, is as if you're going to write a test after what you listen.
Absolutely. That's why we say that active listening is acknowledging the person's
Right.
credibility, what he wants to, empathizing and sympathizing with the person, and ultimately giving a little brief of what you have understood, what you call paraphrasing.
Wonderful, wonderful. So listen to be loved, and listen to hear yourself as well, and listen to seal your relationships. See you again for the 15th episode of Embrace Zindegi.
Thank you.
Keep in touch.
Thank you, everybody. Namaskar, and be a good active listener.